Assalamu alaikum. Aatif, Nawaz, nice to see you. Nice to have you here. I've been looking forward to this one because you're funny, and you better be funny. All of a sudden, I've put it all on you. But my man, it's good to see you. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, man. Wa alaikum assalam, first of all, because you did say assalamu alaikum, so I'm obliged to respond. I'm not obliged, I just feel like obliging, man. You've always been kind of fun. This will be fun, man. I'm looking forward to it. If I'm not funny, I apologize. It's only because my love for you is blocking the funny out. So
no, it's only because you're a bit hungry, isn't it? Basically, you're in the middle of, well, not in the middle of it, in the start of Ramadan, aren't you? So it's yeah, it's not the hardest one in recent times. So this Ramadan's going to be a lot easier than the last sort of 3, 4, 5, isn't it?
Yes, in a way, because it's not as long, like physically long, right? So it sort of starts at sort of 4:15 a.m. In London and ends at about sort of 8:15 in the evening. So it's very doable. It's not a long chunk of time. If you were doing like intermittent fasting, you might do the same thing. Plus, you're at home, so you don't really need to expend as much energy. But conversely, you're at home, so you don't have many things to take up your time. You're not getting on with your regular routine, and it's a bit. I mean, I'm only 2 days in now at time of recording, sort of 2 days in, and it's not impacted me too heavily yet. But I'm good, man. I'm good.
Like, it looks good for your skin. Your skin looks fantastic. Your beard looks sharp. You're on point at the moment, though. Eh? You've had all this time at home looking after the personal health and hygiene and looks.
I'm terrified, Ian. I can't go near my beard. Like I feel that I've got a barber. Like a lot of South Asian men have a very strong connection to their barber. It's like the barber is like their godfather in many ways. They look after you, they guide you, they counsel you. You know, there's a lot going on there. And I really feel I'm terrified about touching my beard. I get on Instagram Live every now and again, and my barber comes on that too. And he looks at it and he critiques it. And he's like, that's okay. Maybe get a pair of scissors just to trim the tash bit. But like, don't touch anything else. I'll deal with it when it comes out. I appreciate you saying the skin is looking good. This is all charcoal face wash. So I recommend that, mate. So good.
Nice one. What do you do when you're locked in and you can't comfort eat during the day? Do you try and sleep as late as possible at the moment, and sort of stay up stupidly late so you can pick and eat and nibble, and then try and sleep for as much of the day?
Yeah, I think because of the way the lockdown's gone, like it has had an adverse impact on sleeping patterns, not just for me, but like for everybody, right? Everybody's staying up later. There's less of a reason to wake up. Even people working from home find it very difficult because, you know, there's more thoughts on your mind. You're more anxious. You can't sleep even when you go to bed and you try and sleep. I mean, I'm a stand-up comic, so my whole life is like I work 25 minutes after 7 o'clock in the evening, and that's it, and I'll moan about it. So I don't like it's not massively different for me. Sometimes I just get very unlucky and I need to do things early in the morning. Like I need to speak to somebody, or I need to do this, or I need to call this family member, or I need to connect with this time zone. So the luck of the draw always goes against me and I can never really stay in bed that late. But that's okay. I don't want to just like sleep to kill time. That feels like a waste of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You must be looking forward to the winter Ramadans, though, aren't you? You must be looking forward to heading backwards into autumns, into winters, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. You know, there's a whole bunch of Muslims who are kind of like, and you know, there's a lot of them, and there's nothing wrong with this. They're just kind of like, I very much look forward to Ramadan. It's a wonderful month. It's a blessed month. And yes, all of that is true. But it annoys me because it's very challenging, and nobody acknowledges the challenges. Yeah. It's physically draining. It's like you're putting yourself through something here. And that's the whole point as well. It's supposed to be a challenge. It's supposed to be a sacrifice. But like, yeah, I'm looking forward to the easier ones in the winter. Absolutely. At a Boxing Day test match, if I can watch a Boxing Day test match and that coincides with Ramadan, I'm the happiest man.
That's true, because you are up all night as well. Well, up later doing your stuff. Mate, I watched your TV show. I watched Muzlamic last night. Brilliant, loved it. Loved
oh, thanks, man.
Loved the hubbly bubbly, the shisha scenes. How much fun was it getting made up for that? Having all that backdrop made for you for the show.
It was really fun, man. Like, I mean, we went through sort of about £5,000 worth of wigs on that show alone, and there was no need for it, really. Like, it's incredible. Like, I can't explain. It's such a privilege when you write words on a page and you just write crazy stuff, and then somebody makes it come true. Like, they literally, I see him as kind of like a Swami type figure with like long, like a hippie, but sort of like, so I'm painting this image for the storyteller, and it's just coming from my mind, and then they make it come true.
Yeah.
It's so humbling, you know. You think, wow, I wrote this on a piece of paper, and now it's real, and millions of people are watching it. I'm glad you liked it, though, man. Thank you. That's very cool. That's very sweet.
I enjoyed it. It was. We have so in New Zealand we have a New Zealand style of comedy in the same way that you have your say Muslim Islam or South Asian style of comedy, and it is very much a let's laugh at us kind of a way. And I took that as the whole show was very much let's laugh at us on the back of white perception. Is that fair?
There's a little bit of that going on. I mean, so one of the sketches that was, the whitest brown guy, where these two brown guys compete to be the whitest people in the office. And a lot of people read that as a critique of white people, which was completely wrong. And if you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. It's a critique of the assimilation culture, or this post-colonial hangover that, like, you know, a lot of South Asians have. Like, you know, they think of like more British, or being more British, as something that's represents superiority or some kind of, you know, promotion in society, and they play to that. So it was really just a battle of that. It's not a critique of white people, absolutely not. And you know, like, and if anything, it's more of a. But yeah, so we were trying to look at certain like stereotypes or certain perceptions and flip them. We were trying to look at scenarios that were quite relatable, but also, you know, present them from a different perspective. And like, you know, like the airport sketch, it connected so much with so many people, not just Muslims, like a lot of people connected with it. And it was just, it was really cool, man. It was just a really cool thing.
Right. How long is something like that in the process? How long from words on paper? Oh, got an idea. Words on paper, writing it with someone, you know, finding someone to sort of write it with and sort of flesh everything out. How long does it take from there to it being finished and on the BBC?
So there's two things happening here in parallel, right? One is the journey of putting together the show, and parallel to that is the journey of making the show happen. So they're two very different things. You can have the best idea in the world. You can have the best show idea, well thought out characters, great arcs. But if you have no one to facilitate it, nobody to broadcast it, it doesn't mean anything, you know? Like if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, doesn't make a noise. Right? It's exactly that scenario. So myself and Ali got together. We were driving back from a comedy club in Birmingham, and we were driving back to London, and on the way we were talking about working together and we should do something. And I'd had this conversation a million times with a million comics. Yeah, we'll get together, we'll write, we'll work on something. But for whatever reason, we actually followed through.
It's like the two songwriters. Oh yeah, we should do a collab sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We were driving back from London. You know, it's like a 2-hour drive. I've done that with many comics. So the Glee Club I've played numerous times in Birmingham. So comedians will always be driving. Yeah, what about this gig and that comic, and I don't like that guy, and I like this girl, and I don't like that girl, and this person's funny, and this person's not funny. And then after that, you get to, you know, real life things like, oh, I don't know if my cousin loves me. I don't know. You know, so many things you can talk about. But I like we talked about it, and then we actually followed through. And alongside that, the head of comedy, at the time, the head of comedy at the BBC had been coming to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and was like a fan of my comedy. So they were keen to do something. They were like, we'll do something. Actually, there were heads of a couple of networks who I had meetings with, and they were like, oh, we'll do something. But, you know, you get really excited the first time somebody says that to you. When 3 years pass and nothing's happened, you get a little bit jaded. So me and Ali worked on the script. We had it put together. And by chance, at the same time, he got a meeting with Chris Sussman, who at the time was the head of comedy at the BBC, at BBC Studios. And Chris had also attended my show. I did a really big kind of stand-up comedy show to finish off my tour in Leicester Square Theatre in London, to finish off my tour. And he saw that too. And cumulatively, he's like, these guys are good. So I think from start to finish, from the minute we started writing it to the day we got on set, the minute we started writing it, and to getting it on TV, it took 2 years. And I would say that's faster than it normally happens. Like everybody told us along the way, don't get used to the speed, don't get used to, because they literally looked at our first draft and they were like, yeah, we really like this, we're going to commission this, so-and-so, 20 minutes, you guys go do whatever you want. And, you know, they didn't understand our ideas at first either. We had to film them to pitch them. So we put the ideas on paper, we showed the script, they're like, we don't understand. And Chris he's a very dynamic guy. He was like, you know what? Why don't you go film it and show me what you mean? So Ali would come over to my flat, and we would just like work with iPhones and Samsungs and whatever. We're just filming things with selfie sticks and trying to make these big scenes happen and editing things just to show what we're trying to do. And luckily for us, the BBC really liked it, and then Muzlamic happened, man. Best thing that I've ever done professionally.
Yeah, that's huge, isn't it? Like that's the dream, isn't it? Look, stand-up comic first. I think that's fair. That's your grounding. That's your bread and butter. That's your 9 to 5, if you like.
Yeah, that's my 7:30 to 7:55.
Yeah. So as a stand-up comic, the whole dream is a special of some description, is a series, a TV show, is something along the lines to you've practiced all this comedic timing, you've practiced all these words and these jokes, and the dream is to have something that goes mainstream on TV.
Do you know what's weird though, Ian? Like I never really thought about doing a comedy special on TV. Like, obviously, I'd like to do one, and I understand why it's good for my career. I think it would be a lot of fun, actually. But it was never, like, a goal of mine. Like, when I got into stand-up comedy, it was just because I liked stand-up comedy. And it's like, oh, my God, I'm making people laugh professionally. That's incredible. Like, that's what I want to do. I've got into comedy because I saw Ahmed Jalili, this Iranian comedian, on Live at the Apollo, right? And he was kind of smashing. I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. And you know, and it never occurred to me that what I want to do is like I'd seen Eddie Murphy's like all the big comedy specials, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, I Ben Elton, Robin Williams, all these people, right? I'd seen all these great comedians and thought, okay, like they're very good, but I never thought, oh, special. Even now, like I had something in the works, which sadly it's been delayed because of the pandemic, but it's not like if I died, God protect me, but if I died and I'd never done a special before then, I don't think I'd die like, oh, I really wish I'd done a special. It's not like, for me, stand-up comedy is a live art first. So it's very much about the relationship between you and everybody in the room. So those 400 people that were in the room that were there when you did that exact thing, you and them have this bond, this relationship, that experience, that shared experience that can never be replicated on TV.
But it's still to have that piece of work now that is on TV. That's cool. That's better than cool, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that was a dream. So to write and star in my own show is something I wanted to do since I've known what television was. Like, I wanted to be an actor. By the time I turned 14 and I knew that I could have career aspirations outside of working in the family business, I decided to I wanted to be an actor. That's all I wanted to be. And I took loads of ill-advised steps in between to try and make it happen, like go and do an English literature degree. Doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that if you want to be an actor? But anyway, I always wanted to write and star in my own TV show. I desperately wanted that. I wanted that all along. There were loads of little things in my 20s that nearly let it happen. But I was 34 by the time Muzlamic came out. So I'd been working at that specific goal for about 15 years by the time it actually happened. And I can honestly tell you, man, like I'm so glad it happened when it did, because I really appreciate it, man. I really appreciate it. I didn't think of it as something to be greedy, like, oh, I want to do like 60 more of these. I would like to do more of them. Of course I would. But I'm just really grateful that that happened, man. I got to actually experience what it's like to write and star on your own TV show on the BBC, one of the world's biggest platforms. Millions of people watched it. They appreciated it. They liked it. Journalists wrote about it. People, responded to it positively and some negatively as well. But it was just to create something like that. People still to this day, every day I'll get at least one message, at least one every single day on my social media that asks me about Muzlamic. And yeah, man, I'm really happy I put that out there. It was very cool.
Do you the Mo Salah thing cracked me up, and I love how you had a pop at sort of white Hollywood picking white people to play ethnic roles, and I absolutely adored that scene. But was some of it a little bit close to the bone for your own kind? Was there any sort of backlash over you mocking your own South Asian Islamic religion? Was there any backlash on that?
So no, there wasn't really. I mean, a lot of people kind of like when we wrote the show, we only had a few sort of rules. Like, we wouldn't go after easy targets. We wouldn't punch down. We're not going to try and try and attack some kind of marginalized group or anything like that. And if it's being satirical, it has to be either satirical with some kind of political edge or satirical that's very soft satirical. So it's one way or the other. So we didn't really get anything negative from Muslims generally. You'd be shocked. Like there's just shy of 3 million people, I think, according to the last census in the UK that are Muslim, and you know. They loved it. They were so grateful that a sketch show representing their experience came through. A lot of South Asians were really grateful that something since the days of Goodness Gracious Me had come through that reflected their experience a little bit more. Like there was just so much gratitude about the show. It felt like a communal win rather than just like, you know, myself and Ali winning.
The only reason why I asked, because this is the time we're in where there is a lot of outrage over perceived or implied jokes at stereotypes, and I just wondered, even if they had come from the white public, there had been some, they can't be doing that, they can't be mocking themselves like that. It's great to hear that there was sort of nothing like that.
No, generally speaking, like, I mean, there was like completely like, if there was anything, there was like a 0.001% of people, and it was usually based on a misunderstanding rather than like genuine outrage. It was quite, you know, generally I think people kind of understood what we were going for, and they were nice about it. But maybe that's just a case of the people around me just filtering out the negative stuff. That happens as well, you know. There's people like my agent is bless him, he's just like, he's so good at like filtering things, and I'm like, bro, I have Twitter. Like, I can find it. I'll find it. Like, shout out to Andrew Roach. He's a lovely guy. But he's always like, no, don't worry. Everybody loves it. I'm like, no, they don't. Look, Stephen_34 St. George didn't enjoy that. And he's like, no, don't worry. It doesn't matter what Stephen_34 St. George has to say.
Yeah, and you'll be even searching for your first name with 1A as well, just to cover all the bases.
Oh man, I have to. Yeah, it's just, you know, there's a couple of Aatif Nawazes on Twitter. Yeah. One of them has just the 1A in his name, and he's got loads of followers, loads of them, and he does nothing. He's like an electrical engineer in South Carolina, and he's just like, why do all these people keep tweeting me asking for comedy? Like, what is Muzlamic? Why? What is happening? Yeah, it's a blessing, and I've stopped looking, man. To be honest with you, I don't really Google myself. I don't really look for things. I don't really look for reviews. I did the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, right? That teaches you to stop giving too much precedence to reviews or too much like importance to reviews, because you'll get a lot of them and everybody's got an opinion. So as long as you're enjoying your work, your direct audience will tell you what they like.
But when you're enjoying your work, that comes from audience engagement. So you're enjoying it because they're enjoying it.
Yeah. Or it is. So I you know, because I'm a stand-up, I like that gratification. I like saying something, they laugh. Okay, I know that worked. That was good. That was funny. You know, cause and effect, right? So that's great. But with television, there's a little bit more of a delay, and you're a bit more like, oh, are people gonna like that? Are people? But then I also trained myself immediately to think, well, whether they like it or they don't, I like it, and I'm quite proud of what I put out there. So that's all that matters.
How does that process go? So when you're creating a new 25 minutes, a new 35 minutes, a new show, if you like, when you're creating for a new Edinburgh festival, how long does that writing process take you, and how horrible is it sometimes?
It takes me everybody's different, but it takes me 1 year to write 60 minutes.
Yeah.
So the idea is, and a lot of comics do follow this structure actually. So the idea is that you're going to debut a 60-minute show at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival every year, right? Unless you take a year off. But yeah, so every year you debut a new 60-minute show at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and then you tour it immediately afterwards. So maybe September, October, you're touring it. Maybe even December, November if you're big.
The Edinburgh show is the first time you'll do your show.
No. So that's the first time you kind of debut the show, but you've been working up to it. So let me take you reverse through the calendar. You tour that new show. Whilst you're touring that new show, you're writing another show. So whilst you're touring that, you're writing another show. And then, so because you have in the back of your mind that you're going to release another show in August. So when you finish touring this show, you now start going into the clubs and working on little bits and things like that. And you book in a lot of work in progress or preview shows for your next Edinburgh show. Where with the work in progress show, you can have a little notepad if you need to. It doesn't have to be very slick. The audience knows what they're getting into. But you're working on it, you're developing it. New bit, that didn't work, that worked, that didn't work, that worked. Or maybe that needs that kind of tweaking. You do as many previews as you can, or as many work in progress shows as you can, and you debut it in Edinburgh. Well, that's how I do it anyway. And a lot of comics do it that way, but you debut it in Edinburgh. and then hopefully you get good reviews, good audience feedback. You break even on ticket sales and things like that, and then you can tour it afterwards. That's kind of the plan, and you try and find little jokes along the way.
What's how does a new joke happen then? How do you I talk to sports people, I talk to coaches, I talk to people in the physios and things like that, and their pathways to success are pretty obvious. You play cricket, or you go and study, or the pathways are you get better, you get noticed, and you get your job. You're kind of it's a little bit different, but at the same stage you still have to keep progressing. But how do you keep track of your progress? How do you keep on top of a set list or a list of jokes and keep them moving, keep them fluid, and keep adding to them and keep being funny?
So like in my mind, I know what my bits are. Like I know what all my bits are, right? And I've done them thousands of times, so I know that I can go. I don't need to put together a set list necessarily when I go on stage now, unless it's a very specific kind of event. I know, okay, I'll probably start with 1, 2, 3. It's not unlike a batting order. You'll appreciate, you're cricketer, man. So it's like a batting order. I've got my openers, right? I've got my middle order. I got my tail, and I've got my closers, my the tail end. These are the ones that are going to close it out. And you put it together like a batting order, but it is fluid. It depends on the situation of your set. Like it depends. If you need to score more runs, maybe we need to push these guys up a bit. It is almost identical. Interesting. There's loads of people who have different. There's loads of like drills that people have, or workshopping techniques, or loads of technique. But for me, there's only 2 really ways that I write. Right. I'll either be given something, like a topic, like for example, a brand might say to me, Aatif, we want you to send some funny tweets we want some funny tweets about our brand that we can put on Twitter. So you write us a bunch. So let's say, for example, for sake of argument, it's like Toblerone or whatever chocolate brand. I have to sit there and think about Toblerone and what it is about it that is absurd to me, that fits within their parameters. And it's like a puzzle. That's what it is. A joke is very simple: a feed line and then a punchline. In theory, it's a feed line and a punchline, and you can make that more elaborate, and you can build it and put layers on it. But when you boil it right down to it, it comes down to feed line and punchline, and you can sit and write that. Other times they'll just come to you. Jokes will just come to you, or you'll have a funny conversation with somebody. My friends hate me because I do this all often. I'll be like, just one sec, and I'll pull out my little pad and scribble something down. And they'll be like, what's going to happen? Are you going to say my name? And I'm like, I don't know yet. Don't worry. Just forget about it. And then I have the little notepad. So when I'm doing my little writing sessions, I look at it. Sometimes it means nothing. Like it'll just say Peanut Butter Ninja Turtles. And I'll be like, what the hell was that? Why didn't I write more? Why didn't I put some context around it? It just says Peanut Butter Ninja Turtles. But yeah, man, like, I mean, there's loads of ways. It's a beautiful way to make a living anyway, to come up with things like that.
You, like, when I get talking to you, you're always big and character, and you do love talking about yourself. It's everybody's favorite subject. Let's be fair.
But me, I'm everybody's favorite subject.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. And your own favorite. The converse of that is that uses up a lot of energy because you're sort of, you're puffing up and you're trying to be the best you. Do you have a time when you get home, when you finish a show and you're exhausted because of how much you've had to force yourself to be energetic and bouncy?
I don't think I've ever really felt physically exhausted. If anything, I'm more exhilarated. Like, in December, I do this kind of big comedy tour thing, like almost every December with a bunch of other comedians. And, and I'll usually MC the shows because, like, I'll have the most experience MCing or whatever. And then it's a long night. It's like a 3-hour show. So you're on stage, jokes, running around. And I am quite energetic on stage, and I put a lot out there. Yeah. And then you'll finish 3 hours later and you think you're exhausted. And then after that, there's like a meet and greet. So for like an hour, you're meeting everybody and taking photos. And you have to be nice and be like, oh, thank you so much for coming, and lovely, and you're so nice. And thank you so much. And that's your baby. Oh, cute. Thanks for bringing a baby to a comedy show. You've got to do all of these things. Yeah. And then you think you'd be exhausted, but you're not, man. Your mind is still going. You're buzzing. You've got all these positive electrons in your body are charged. I don't think electrons can be positive, but anyway, like all of a sudden you're really like excited and you've got more energy and you can't sleep. If you went home or you went back to your hotel and tried to sleep, it's just never gonna happen. Yep. So I never feel like physically exhausted. I think part of that is because I don't drink, so I don't have that hangover situation.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen with other comics. Like they can do a couple of days in a row, but the third day they're like, oh god, like I feel like, and I think that's what keeps me like heavily energetic. But yeah, I definitely have moments where I'm a bit more introspective, but I don't like to put them out there. That's not for the world. This is for the world. Yeah. That is for me.
Always performing.
Sort of, yeah. You're always putting something on, man. You're always like, I blow dried my hair just before I came on this. Like, there's a sense of pretense to that. You know what I like, actually? I'm just looking at your photo. It looks a bit, the flag behind you is framing your head perfectly. Like, no, go back to where you were. It looks like it's your hair.
I'm trying to, I need to slightly move to one side so that the poppy can sort of, not be my crown.
It's cool.
It looks like
you look a bit like.
That's not deliberate either, by the way.
You look like Stuart Broad a bit.
Okay. I don't know how to appreciate that one, Aatif. I'm kind of lost my train of thought. What you just described there. No, actually, what you just described there is the perfect T20 international. Is we go out and we play in the evening. Well, perfect T20. You go out, you play sort of 7:30 start. You finish. What's that? 10:30 sort of scenario, and you get back to the changing room, quick chat, go out, sign some autographs, sort of very, very similar to what you've done, and then you try and go back to the hotel and you try and go to sleep, and it's just not possible because it's sort of an hour and a half earlier you were running around a field, given your heart rate its biggest workout, and feeling that stress and that pressure of performing in front of a lot of people, similar, and you want to go back to the hotel and you got to sleep, and then you got to get up the next morning and travel, and it's just you're on the road, and that cycle of getting back to the hotel and being still amped, and then what are we going to do because you can't go to sleep. And all of a sudden it's 3 a.m. and you've got to have your luggage outside the door at 6 a.m. It just doesn't work out. So how do you get your sleep? It's not like you can have a couple of the drinks and relax, like I may do. What do you do to try and get your sleep so you're fresh and full of energy the next day?
I wish I could give you a really holistic answer and all that kind of tell you, but the truth is, occasionally. I use this spray that the big hotel chain once gave me, which you spray on your pillow, and it's not like chloroform or anything. It's just like relaxing. It's like relaxing, kind of what do you call them? Smells, right? And what do you call them? He doesn't speak English. It's his third language. So you smell it, and then it helps you kind of drift off a little bit. I have a strict no phone after like a certain hour of night rule. So it's not like a specific hour. It changes based on where I am. But if I want to go to sleep, no phone for 1 hour before I go to sleep. Absolutely not. In fact, you know how some people get really annoyed by those hotels where you don't have the chargers right next to your bed? Yes. I actually love those because it forces you to put your phone away the other side of the room. And I bought a 5-meter USB cable for those exact hotels. True story. It was sitting down next to the side of my bed for ready to go if I ever need it again. I had that too. I have it too. I try and use it for other stuff though. It's like a USB extender, so you can. Yeah. So I try and use it for other things. I've got to charge, like your headphones or your other bits and pieces like this. You got to charge everything nowadays. So I've got a bunch of things in my travel bag. I've got like a go bag. It's ready to go whenever I need to go somewhere. And it's got spare blazer, spare jacket. And a bunch of other random things.
That's exactly like that's a lot like a cricketer, in that there's always a bag ready to go. There's always if there's something to do, a game to play somewhere, yep, right, gone. Something media to go and do, come in and get bag gone, out in the car, later, catch you later, and very similar sort of lifestyle. And then in that lifestyle, when you're on form, when you're feeling good and everything's going well, and you have a bad day. Do you have bad days? Do those bad days happen, or is it a bad crowd? Because it can't be you.
No, bad days absolutely happen, right? Not as often as they used to, thank God. But it's like anything, right? It's a craft. I've worked hard to make sure that more times more often than not, I'm doing well, right? Like I always tell, it took me 7 years from the day I started doing stand-up comedy to the day I did my first ever 60-minute solo comedy show, it took me 7 years. So I always tell people it took me 7 years to get good, not great, not amazing, just good, just good at stand-up comedy. And I'm still I think I'm still just a little bit better than good. Like I'm not. Like there's so many comics who don't have my kind of a profile even, who are way better than me, so much better than me. But that's the way, entertainment is. It's not a meritocracy. It's all about, timing, luck, and all sorts of factors. But in terms of the cricket thing, it's true. Like when you have a game, when you're playing a game, Ian, right? You play a T20, you win, you try and go to sleep. You can't sleep. You're still reliving those moments. Oh, that was amazing when I hit that six, when I took those wickets, when I got that award, when the crowd cheered. When you lose, you can't sleep because, again, you're reliving the moments. Like, oh, I can't believe I bowled that delivery. I can't believe I played that shot. I can't believe the crowd booed. And you're reliving all the moments, right? As a comic, yeah, again, you do relive, like, oh, it was amazing when that joke landed, when this didn't happen. Yeah. But when I didn't do so well, I sleep soundly because I am not bothered at all. It's not one of those things where it's like, oh, my God, I can't believe I did a bad show. I don't do bad shows. There's a few things there's factors that can be wrong. Like I did my best, and if it didn't work, it didn't work. It's no big deal. I'm trained. If I have an off night, I have an off night, but it's very unusual. If I have to think back, I can't remember the last time I really struggled in a comedy show, except for the last time I remember having a weird show was being in Istanbul, and there was a bit of a language disconnect, so I'm having to slow everything down, and B, the microphone stopped working 1 minute into my performance, and I was headlining, so like 7 comics have gone by and the mic has worked perfectly for them, so I'm now having to yell my material slowly to like a bunch of Turkish people who are also looking at me thinking, he looks exactly like me, he's probably Turkish, why is he not just speaking in Turkish? So that was a little bit awkward, but even then I came through it, man. It wasn't too bad. Like I really like that.
So you on the back of a bad show, it doesn't stress you out. It doesn't worry you.
No, not really. I mean, it would worry me if I'd done like a sequence of bad shows, right? Yeah. So it's like if you're playing cricket and you're a batsman, right? And you get out for a duck, right? No, it happens, man. You got a good ball, you get out for a duck. It happens to the best of them. Tendulkar, Kohli, Babar Azam, whoever it is, right? They get out to beautiful deliveries, right? Kane Williamson, obviously. How could I forget him? I have to throw him in because, so...
Why did you only use one Pakistani? Why wasn't there... Why wasn't there... There was only one Pakistani in that list, yeah?
I was trying to distract you with a Kiwi. I was hoping you would notice. But, yeah, I mean, you have a bad... It's not the end of the world. If you get 3 ducks in a row, then maybe you need to start looking at things. In that preview cycle that we talked about, when you're building new material, that's when you need to be a little bit more analytical. But it's not like a beating, is like, oh, I'm so disappointed. It's more of a, okay, this needs some work. What do I need to get back in the nets and work on, for example? So the parallels are there all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's why I love talking to people like yourself, because you're not in cricket industry. You're not in an industry that I know very much about, in fairness. But the parallels are all kind of the same. There's so much transfer between how you debrief yourself and how you construct your ego. Also, is part of your ego attached to your performances? Have you managed to disconnect that? Have you managed to? So when you have a great show, you bounce around and you feel perkier for longer, versus a bad show where you go back, you can sleep, but does that pull your ego? Does that play on you? Because certainly did for me, and it was one thing I wish I could have changed, was that my playing ability wasn't attached to my ego, wasn't attached to how I perceived myself.
I don't know, man. I think I'd like to think that I'm getting away from that a little bit more. Like my mental state isn't directly dominated by what I'm doing on stage or on TV or whatever. The truth is that it is, and it's everything. It goes to the most granular thing. It's not just what I do on TV or on stage. It's my Instagram post. Ooh, that one didn't get that many likes, or this one didn't get that many comments, or even this is just how fragile the ecosystem up there is. I'm trying to get more control over it. I can just lie to you or just delude myself and say, you know what, it doesn't bother me. But it does, even if I get a negative comment, I do think about it. It does weigh on my mind. And I try and find ways around that. I do ultimately have this people pleasing, like, at my core. So I really want people to be happy. Like, are you okay? And did you like me? Please tell me you like me. Please, you did like me. Yeah? Please, if you didn't like me, what do I need to do to make you like me? Like, I do think like that, but I'm trying to get away from it, because more than a couple of comics who I really respect have given me the advice to care less on stage. Like, and when they say care less, it's not about put less preparation in. It's not about put less time in or anything else like that. It's just worry less about the response and just let your words sit there, out there on stage. And it's something I really am working on, just trying to be a bit more like, not that I'm inauthentic, but just in the sense of being as sincere as I possibly can on stage, rather than having this whole "good evening, ladies and gentlemen, hello" and all that. There's a definite place for that in comedy, don't get me wrong, and that's what got me into it in the first place. But the kind of things I'm trying to talk about, the heavy things that we go through in life, and gosh, like when comedy clubs open again after the lockdown, it's not going to be a pleasant experience, because every comedian is going to be referencing it. It's a bit like when Brexit happened or when Trump happened. And, it's just one of those things that dominates things. But I'm kind of almost grateful there is no Edinburgh Fringe Festival this year, because I won't have to sit through that. But I say I wouldn't have to sit through that. I myself am writing jokes about it as well. Total hypocrite.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you're sort of observational comedy, aren't you? You see something and you see the funny side in it. You see the there's some irony here. There's a punchline on the end of this, and so it's very hard to not use current events as material in that case, isn't it?
Yeah, but like I've tried to make my comedy sort of relatable from a perspective you didn't consider.
Yeah.
So I was trying to write this gag about, it's not a complete joke, so don't judge my comedy career on this, anybody watching this or listening to this, but it's about how hula hoops, when you were a kid, hula hoops, the crisps, right? You'd put them on your...
Yeah. I thought you were
sorry, you were thinking of...
I thought we'd gone full belly dancing, and I was like, all right, I'm down with
gosh.
this. Yeah.
You know what? That's pretty good. I might have to make a note of that somewhere.
Yeah.
Hula hoops. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, just 1 second. I've got my... Great. Okay. Good. So I was writing a thing about like hula hoops when you were a kid. You put them on your fingers, right? And you did them like that. Yes. But you never did it with wheat crunchies. Why did people not do it with wheat crunchies? They were they had the right sort of shape to them as well, a little bit. Maybe they were a little bit narrow. But when you're a kid, your fingers are quite small. Why can you not do it with wheat crunchies?
Yeah,
that is the first... Sorry, go on.
No, sorry, go.
No, I was just talking about like crisp fascism. But anyway, don't worry. You carry
but that's the seed of something that may or may not end up in one of your shows.
Yeah, it may or may not. Most likely not. But yeah.
But there's a hierarchy of crisps and hula hoops, and yeah, I can see where that's going. Wasn't there just recently a whole chip voting to vote the best flavored crisps just recently, or something? There was something just recently, maybe late last year. Anyway, but how do you stay away from this pandemic and not do comedy on this pandemic? I mean, one of the funniest things I saw was homeschooling. Tomorrow we're going to find out what chloroform smells like. That was just the best piece of humor. You get that, don't you? Come on. That was just the best piece of humor that I had seen written on Twitter. And I was like, that's gold. But there is a lot of very bad current event humor based around the pandemic. How do you whittle it down and then go, do you know what? I'm not going to touch it, or I am going to touch it. Or how do you go, how do you decide to not use jokes?
It's up to you, man. It's a personal preference thing, right? It's about what your set of morals or ideologies allow you to talk about on stage, right? I firmly believe in complete freedom of speech on stage. So I think if you want to say something, even if it's massively distasteful, you should be allowed to say that on stage, as long as you're not inciting direct violence. Right? You should be able to say whatever you want on stage. If you don't like it, if you find it distasteful, the worst thing you can do is start protesting it and start getting all outraged on Twitter or Instagram, because all you're doing is giving this idea that you don't like, supposedly, air to breathe. What you do is you vote with your feet. You get up, you walk out of that room. You're allowed to do that any given time. You don't have to engage with comedy that you don't find funny, but don't use your subjective perspective to define what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable for everybody else, right? So I think in terms of stand-up comedy, you got to protect complete freedom of speech, because like there are comics who say really distasteful things. There's many of them. I've seen them. They've done it while I've been in the room. They've said things that are homophobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, all these things right there when I'm in the room. And if I'm close enough to the comedian, if I think I have that relationship, and it's a very difficult thing, I wouldn't really give anybody feedback on anything unless they asked me for it. But if I was close enough to them to be like, dude, what are you doing? Come on, like seriously, what are you doing? I would. If I'm not, I just walk away. If somebody asks me, I won't even badmouth them publicly. I just won't talk about them. I won't give them any that space in my brain, because there's so many amazing things out there to occupy your brain. There's in terms of media, just in comedy, there's so many incredible comedians whose work I love, whose craft I love, whose whose personalities I love. Why wouldn't I spend my time thinking about them and telling people how and this person is?
Yeah. But you must see a lot of comedy as well. So how do you and you see that stuff that is on the negative side of on your spectrum, that you see on the negative side. It must be hard to keep your mouth shut, though.
I mean, you have outlets, right? So I definitely I'm on more than like 1 or 2 WhatsApp groups with some, stand-up comedians, and we trade opinions and things like that. But like publicly, I don't want to publicly, like, it's not interesting. I don't think it's that interesting. Do you really care what I think about some comic I don't like? There's a forum for that opinion, and I'll use that. Like, I might privately be speaking to you. I'll be like, oh man, have you heard of so and so? Like, rubbish, and that's different, right?
So you'll happily backstab.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Why not? That's just in my nature. I can't help that. That's something that's years and years of like socialization, and that's genetic. Like, there's nothing.
But that's full Desi culture, isn't it?
Well, no, the thing is, like, it's an element of sharing an opinion with somebody that you trust with that opinion, then there's putting an opinion out there which can be blown out of proportion, which can actually do some damage to that person's career, right? So if a comedy promoter approached me and I would be honest about my thoughts on a comedian, but I'm acutely aware that people put a high premium on my opinion, particularly in sort of, in the London comedy circuit. So they'll ask me like, oh, what do you think of so-and-so? You'll never, ever, ever hear me say I don't like them, or like, you'll just hear me give like a broader analysis. The only time I get really descriptive is when I really like somebody. Then I'll be like, oh man, this guy, this style, this girl, the way she puts her things, blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, it's not, like I say, man, comedy, like everything else, is subjective, right? So what I find funny is different from what you find funny, is different from what he finds funny, it's different from what she finds funny. So you can never really paint it all with a brush.
I've never really come across you in a bad mood. I've never really come across you in a bit of a downer kind of a slump, like Aatif just sort of wanders into the room and sits down, and I've never ever seen you like that, and I'm this is kind of tenuous, but it's something that I've been sort of looking at and studying a little bit, and I think there's a massive link between meditation or prayer, between having that calm and being quite flatline, if you like, in terms of quite stable, quite always the same. Do you think there's anything in that sort of enforced meditation, that prayer time that I know you're not the regular prayer, you're not the 5 times every day. I know that, but that's not I just know that about you, because it's not always possible, is it? But do you think that does sort of pull you back in and just calm you back down and give you that level of everything's okay?
I think prayer is, again, man, like, I think people get loads of different things from it. Some people think of it as an obligation and I must fulfill this. Some people do get that kind of peace and relaxing, that kind of tranquil quality from it as well. I personally, it just amplifies my mood at the time. So if I'm anxious, it will make me more anxious. So when you finish the prayer and you make those requests from God, you're like, God, please end this pandemic. Please let me get back to work. Please protect my parents. Please protect my please help me find the love of a woman. Another one. Sorry. Like all of these things. Like you gotta, like you ask they all come from anxieties and things like that, and they're kind of amplified. If you like the people that I know that get the most from prayer, they make really selfless prayer. You know, they're always like, you know, please help mankind, help us get past these things, help end poverty. The people that have weights on their hearts and souls, please help lift those weights. Like they'll speak in like Shakespearean prayer. Like, you know, it's also elaborate. And I mean, I don't have that level of spirituality, sadly.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a basic spiritual person, I guess, very basic. But yeah, I mean, the other thing you got to remember, IOB, is that like the positivity you see, like with the environments that we've always met in, have always been like performing-y environments. We'll have a chat on the phone and things like that. But even then, like, you know, like it's not going to be deep dive, and I don't really go deep dive with anybody. Yeah. It's not really my style to go deep dive. But there is like not a shallow, but there is like a superficial personality or a superficial chunk. I have a deeply superficial, but not deeply superficial. I have depth in my superficiality. I'm trying to create a concept there, so bear with my linguistic incapabilities. But yeah, so there's definitely what you're getting is something that is superficial, but there's depth to that, and it's so deep that it's very hard to get to the core. I'm not always high energy. I'm not always happy or chilled out. I try and be when I'm in an environment not unlike this. Not that there's anything insincere about it. Like, I'd love to talk about, you know, and it really, you know, I get really excited that that I know you and you're my friend. Like when you came on my Instagram live the other day, I didn't, you know, I was like, you know, I don't even know if you were there for the bit where I was talking. I was like, oh my guys, he captained New Zealand's test team. He was the New Zealand guy. He played cricket professionally, and he's my friend. Like, I get really excited about these things, and but despite that, like, I'm still being performer-ish. Like not like I'm on stage, but there's like an element, there's a veil, and like I don't like to lift it, man. Whatever happens.
But that goes back to something I asked you earlier. That's tiring, and I know that from playing, because you always had to be what everyone perceived you to be, and so that is so tiring. And then I'm gonna take that prayer for you isn't necessarily that thing that gives you your serenity, that outward serenity. It's more of a inward sort of thing. But I'm still going to go back to that is so tiring, putting on that fun face at all those times. And yes, we may have only sort of seen each other in and around fun things to be doing, but there's still the tired bit when you get home and you're sitting with some fried chicken. And I say that because of our mutual love for fried chicken, that you're like, oh man, not sure I can even finish this because I'm just knackered, because I'm just so tired.
First of all, I have never ever looked at a plate of fried chicken and said I could never finish this. That's like, I take that as a personal thing. That's very important to clarify. Number two, man, it is tiring. I get a lot of massages. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I'm okay. I'm a strong guy. Like, I think I'm a reasonably strong guy. You know, I do things to relax myself. I play a lot of video games. I put a high premium on my own kind of myself. So, you know, some people are like, oh, you're massively egotistical and you love yourself. Yes, love yourself. Like, when I hang out with somebody, like if I go on a date, for example, with somebody, right, I tell them immediately, you must be very special because I'm spending time with you instead of spending time with my favorite person, which is me, right? So I am my favorite person, and I encourage you all to try and make yourself your favorite people. Like, you know, I went through a sequence of things, and I don't mean to get into it, but they did affect my my self-respect and my self-value and my self-worth and all that kind of stuff. It took me a long time to build myself back up to what I'm at now, and I refuse to be vulnerable or put myself second to anybody, you know? Like, and also, I was telling this to my mother as well. I tell my mother a lot. My mother is like a classic Pakistani mum who wants to be there for everybody, and like, no, I want to make sure everybody's happy. And I'm like, Mum, be there for yourself. Right, be there for yourself, because when you're at your optimum and you're making yourself happier, you'll be in a better position to make other people happy, because you're looked after yourself. You're thinking actively. You're thinking sharp. And Mum is very sharp. She's very clever. So you know, when I need some kind of counseling on specific things, like, you know, oh, Mum, so and so thing didn't come through. It's not just generic. Oh, don't worry, you know, pray and everything will be okay. It's very much like, well, what didn't happen and who did it come from and what about that person and they said that to you? Did you talk about that thing? I'm like, damn, Mum, you're like a genius, man. So Yeah, with the relaxing thing. Yeah, I do things to like. I listen to a lot of classical music. I genuinely really adore classical music. I know it doesn't really fit my persona, but I do like it. And the Flower Duet is my favorite. Like full disclosure, I heard it in a British Airways advert for the first time, but since then I found out everything and I quite like it. I like going for really, really, really long walks in the city. I can't do that now, but I used to just like being in the middle of London and just going for really, really, really long walks randomly.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of friends that I talk to about specifically. They must hate me because I only talk about negative things with them, and they're like, the world gets this loveliness and we get the crap. So yeah, I mean, there's ways.
You pulled that one back nicely. and your love of wrestling, man. That's something we share. The love of the performance art of wrestling, mate. Where's that come from? Because when I found out you were interested in the TV, WWE, etc., mate, just blew my mind, because that's been something I've loved for quite a while. That's like my brain turn off. It's like it's the bad soap opera with some amazing athletes, and that's kind of that's like my sort of repair time. I kind of call that. That's me watching something no brain, just enjoyment of skills and acting, etc. Where's that come from for you?
I don't know, man. Like I worked out the other day that I've been watching wrestling for 25 years of my life now. So it's like and I still watch it. Like WrestleMania happened a few weeks ago, and they did it behind closed doors and stuff. And obviously the lockdown was happening. So a bunch of my friends, we actually did a Zoom call, like a private Zoom call, not for broadcast, and there were like 8 of us on this watching WrestleMania, watching and chatting, so we could have that social experience of watching wrestling. I don't know. I think I like a lot about it. I like the kind of pageantry of it. I like the huge characters, the over-the-topness, the kind of performing. You know, it kind of puts together elements of stand-up comedy and Bollywood and the circus and combat sports and storytelling, theatricality, all of it. You know, I like. There's so much about it that I like. But what I've worked out over the years is that what I like more is the real stories happening behind the scenes. So there's a podcast I'm obsessed with called Something to Wrestle With by Bruce Pritchard. And it's literally him just telling behind the scenes stories about certain things or certain events and what was going on with this person and what was going on with that person. And they're often more interesting than what's happening on screen. But because of that, I've always stayed connected to this thing. Maybe it's a fantasy disconnect, but also it's just something. It's a bit like statistics in cricket. You know, like cricket fans love their stats, right? Like hardcore fans will be able to tell you whose average is 51.23 and whose average is 91. Whatever. So it's a bit like that with wrestling. You remember who had the most, world heavyweight championship reigns, or which one was the IC champion for the most number of days cumulatively, or how much money somebody got paid for specific events or things like that. It's fascinating. The history of professional wrestling is fascinating, and that's before you get into the Japanese stuff, which is even cooler. Like there's even more stuff happening in Japan. So yeah, I've always been a huge fan, man, and I've never really downplayed it. I don't talk about it a lot in my stand-up comedy because I've worked out that it's difficult to build material around it. It's just something that I like, and I have to keep it separate from my work. I've tried to sort of get involved with wrestling a couple of times, and never worked out, sadly.
What's that? Hey, there was something you just said there. Actually, is that you were interested. You sort of sometimes you find yourself more interested in the stories behind the show, if you like. So that the show is this, but then the stories about the people, and that's kind of what I've tried to make these conversations about. It's about the people behind the performer, if that makes sense. And so what goes into making you the performer is the person and your interests and your setbacks and all those things that turn. So I've managed to link a wrestling question, which was just for me, into something that you've answered in the way that couldn't have been any better, because it's the people behind the showman. And so and you're a showman. That's what you do. You're on stage, and the person behind it it's quite accurate, actually, isn't it? You're not putting on, you're just turning yourself up a little bit, which is something they say in wrestling, turn your personality up to 11, up to 12, up to 20. You're actually kind of doing the same thing when you're on show, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. You do tune in a little bit more to that personality that you're on stage. I think on stage my persona is exactly that. It is just the regular me turned up a little bit,
Yeah.
or turned down depending on which version of my set I'm doing, or which material I'm focused on. Over time, I've started to do more stuff about sort of relationshipy stuff.
Yeah.
I've tried to keep a little bit clear because it has been addressed many times. But then I think I come at it from a different angle that people maybe don't, acknowledge that often, or haven't heard that often. So, I mean, I do try and dial it up though. Like I do like to make it feel like a performance. This is one of the first things I remember speaking to a comedian, and he said to me, like, treat it serious. Like, I think I was wearing something a bit scruffy. I turned up in t-shirt and jeans, which a lot of comics do. But he was like, take this seriously. There's 400 people who just paid to see you, and your name is on the ticket that they bought, and you can't even dress nicely for them. So I was like, okay, fair enough. Like, I'll put on a blazer. I'll put on some nice clothes. I'll try and present myself and make sure I look after my face. Come on and treat it like a performance. Treat it very seriously. It is a privilege to hold that mic and tell jokes, and so treat it as such.
Do you see other performers, other stand-ups, and they are a completely different persona on stage? So it is a piece of acting as opposed to yourself just turned up.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of performers like that.
Yeah.
Who only turn it on for the stage, and it's literally a character almost that they're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I always encourage new comedians to be over-prepared. Don't try and be spontaneous, because you might be able to get away with that spontaneity 1, 2, 3 nights. But what's going to keep you going is being, having prepared material, ready, things that you've written down, things that you're ready to say in case nobody gives you anything back. And that's much better than being spontaneous. And yeah, I really like, there's a lot of comics. There's, like Rowan Atkinson. I remember meeting Rowan Atkinson for the first time and thinking like, oh gosh, what's he going to...
Oh. Oh no, don't go. Don't go. Oh no. Hold on. No, I lost you. You said, sorry man, we lost all of that. We lost you just after you said, I met Rowan Atkinson for the first time. I didn't know. And then what was it?
Okay, so I didn't know what to expect when I met Rowan Atkinson for the first time, like, because you think about all of his iconic characters like Mr. Bean and his stage personas, all the stand-up stuff that he did, Blackadder, like the guy from the Thin Blue Line. He's done so much, right? But he's actually just quite normal when you speak to him, and it's almost underwhelming. You're like, no, but surely you're more charactery than this in real life. But he's not. He's just a great performer who can put on characters.
Yeah.
Steve Coogan is the same.
Yeah.
Alan Partridge, and he's the same. But in the modern era, there's more. I think because we live in not a cynical time, but an open time, right, where information is widely available and it's hard to hide behind any kind of veil. There's more premiums on authenticity, so people like it when you give them a real piece of yourself. Like when Gervais is on stage doing his stand-up, he's talking about the Golden Globes and real things, and Chris Rock talked about his divorce, and Dave Chappelle talks about his real life experiences, and that's what people want to hear. Even Louis C.K. released his recent one. He had to touch upon that. So people want to hear the real stuff. That's where people are being graded. But I really like the stupid things sometimes. I like Tim Vine. I just like puns for an hour. That's awesome. Or Acaster just talking about random silliness. I really like that too. I think, part of me likes the departure. I like the serious comedy, as it were. But I also like just silly comedy, just completely silly things that don't mean anything, that just entertain you. Like Tim Vine and Acaster are two that come to mind that I'd watch just for fun anytime.
Yeah. Mate, I do enjoy Tim Vine. It's just I just sit there and I just cannot believe how his memory works and just has so many one-liners. Because it is to a degree easier to remember a story that has junctures as the way that you would tell a joke than it would be surely than to remember one line after one line after one line like Tim Vine does. Or is that just so honed that for someone like him, that is the story?
Yeah, man, I completely disagree. I think I don't think there's any either one is easier than the other. If you think about it like an actor, right? Is it easier to learn one big monologue or to learn a sequence of short lines? I guess there's pros and cons for both, right? Like, but it is like that. It's just all about preparation. So whether you're going to tell a really long story or whether you're going to tell a sequence of puns, you're going to put in the same sort of time to memorize and remember and get into the rhythm of telling them. And yeah, he's been doing it for such a long time, so successfully, that his mind just works like that. And he literally can pun any day, any time, and people tell him to as well, but like on demand, like in interviews, like, oh, do a pun about this or do a pun about that. And I hate it when people say, tell me a joke. I never do. As a rule, I never do that. But Tim, he's incredible. He'll just be like, yeah, I'll just pun that, no problem, and he'll pun things just out of nowhere. The worst is when he goes through the effort to do that and people groan. I want to throw them out of the studio when I see things like that happen.
People groan because the puns are dad puns. No, come on, that's what you asked for.
I mean, it's ridiculous. He's delivering something for you on demand, and you're still having to get what is this level of what is this entitlement? I hate it.
Yeah, mate, that's been awesome. That's such a good chat for me. This is again, it's the person behind the person behind the performer, the struggle to become. How long did it take you to become mainstream, if you like? How long did it take you to, you know what I mean? How long did it take you for doing small little clubs and small little shows to now becoming a headline on a three? How long does that take?
I mean, it's different for everybody. For me, no, I still don't think like I'm a headline mainstream person. I think I'm still shy of that. I think I've definitely overlapped. Sorry?
Yeah, but you are doing more of those things now, aren't you?
Yeah, like I've been on some TV. I've done some bits and pieces, and you know, I get invited to some very cool shows from time to time to perform on, right? Alongside some very like people that I grew up watching on TV. I get to hang out and perform with them and stuff, and that's very surreal. In terms of mainstreamy, I mean, I don't know, but it definitely. I still think I'm pretty much just on the cusp of it rather than there. So. I would say like 10 years. 10 years before any like the first time I ever got recognition in my career as a stand-up, like industry recognition, was when I did my first hour-long Edinburgh show, and it was called Muslims Do It 5 Times a Day. And that one was the one that got really popular and had the long run in the West End, and and basically put me on the map in the UK comedy circuit as somebody who's good and funny and different, blah blah blah. So that was 2014. But 2015, sorry.
I love the name of that show. Absolutely love the name of that show. And if you're going to judge a book by its cover, I'm going to go to that show, because that cover, that title is genius. Does that must also, so you must have to think long and hard about the name of a show. So the cover of the book is, I can't not see that.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in Edinburgh, for example, the Fringe Festival, you're competing with like another 5,000 comedy shows.
Yeah.
So and in 2015, nobody knows who I am. Nobody's heard of me. Nobody has any idea when. So the name of my show has to be interesting, so that you overcome the fact that this is just some random foreign-sounding name. Muslims say, "Oh, that's interesting," and it was on at 10:15 at night. Yeah. And 95% of the audience for that was like white British.
Of course.
That came to see that show. 95% of the audience was white British, and they loved. I was just lucky that they loved it and they gave it the praise that they did. And the industry people that came to see it also deemed it worthy of praise. And I could tell it was quite a sincere praise. It wasn't like a token. Oh yeah, okay, we've got to look like this. It was quite sincere, and I made a few joke lists, or made some of the best joke lists and things like that that year. And I mean. I think the more famous a comedian becomes, or more name value they have, the less like punny their title needs to be. Yeah. Like, for example, I still put, but my last tour was called Instant Gratification, but Gratif, with my name in it. Yeah. And it was still tied into the theme of my show. It was about instant gratification and like a culture of impatience, but I felt the need to pun just in case people didn't know my name. The best one was Artificial Intelligence. That was my favorite.
Yeah,
I loved that. That was probably the best comedy show I ever did as well, to be fair, because it was exactly in tune with the time that it happened, and it was seen by 2,000 people, and the 2,000 people over the 20-odd shows that I did it, that saw it, like only they got to see it. Actually, that's not true. I did do 2 shows of it in London as well. There was like a mini tour, but that was like when you see a comedy show poster, Ian, which has my name and a title that isn't a pun, that's when I've made it mainstream.
that's when you're too cool for me. Then that's yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, man, I'll never be too cool for you, man. I'll never be. Wherever you want, you give me a call, man. I'm friends with somebody who played for New Zealand. That's pretty epic for me.
I just need you to be doing a show not too far away from here, or sometimes I'm in London. I just have never been able to match up a time and place to get to one of your shows, but I'm going to get there. Don't you worry about that. Aatif, mate, that's been awesome. I've enjoyed that. I've really so there's some comedy art, but there's more so. I've got to know you better, which is awesome, and I appreciate your time. Not long left now, and you can start hitting the food, my man.
Okay, what time is it?
It's like 10 past 5. Yeah, another couple of hours.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I need to spend at least an hour. I do 1 hour a day in the garden doing some cricket drills.
Oh,
like I got to do that just keep fit and stuff, and also just in case I get the call. You never know.
Yeah.
In case somebody gives me the call, you know.
England or Pakistan? Which team? Whatever. Who?
To play for England.
Okay.
To support forever and ever and ever and ever and ever Pakistan.
Of course, like every good British Pakistani or Pakistani British Pakistani, isn't it? Yeah, that's strange. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, man. That's wonderful. I've enjoyed that so much, Aatif. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
And you look handsome too. Gee whiz. Love you, mate. Take care.
Thanks, mate. You too, brother.
Hi, Ian O'Brien here. Thanks for getting to the end of this 108 with IOB. I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe, please. But also leave us a message down below in the comments about what was your most interesting or favourite part of this chat. Thanks a lot. Love ya.